Greetings, everyone. I am Tieesha Essex here with Mr. Willie Cartwright, author of From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity. And tonight, well, how are you doing? And happy anniversary to you and happy early birthday.
I am awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the anniversary wishes and the early happy birthday. Thank you so much. But I'm good. We are good. How are
And
you?
greetings, I'm doing great. And greetings to everyone who is joining us tonight, those who are coming in, who are going to watch the replay. I've been so amped for how am I doing? I'm amped. I'm happy for it tonight because I was looking forward to this video because oh my gosh, one because the family asked for it, but then two is something that we can relate to. And so those who are joining us new tonight, can you tell them well I set your title of your book, but can you let them know who you are, where they can find you and your mission and what you do?
So Willie Cartwright, that's me. You can find the book on Amazon first. Willie O. Cartwright, From Saved to Sane, and she's showing the cover there, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity, and why I think it's been detrimental to the African American community. You can follow me on Facebook, as I always say, if you want to laugh and just kind of have a good time, just to see some of the back and forth that I do with people, because I always post memes or comments about religion. And that is WC O'Neill on Facebook, Oneal. On TikTok, I think is Willie Cartwright. I think just Willie Cartwright. I got to make sure I get that. TikTok on Willie Cartwright, and on Instagram, I think it's Willie Cartwright 1906. And then the YouTube channel, which is the most important, is From Save to Sane. So you can find Save to Sane. You can check out the videos there. So yeah, that's that. What else? So my story is I spent 40 plus years in Christianity, in the faith, deep in the church. My mother was extremely devout. She was a minister before she passed away. She became a minister about 10 years before she passed away. But she had always been a very devout person in the faith. Born and raised in the Bible Belt, Alabama. I've been here in Georgia for 26 years, but I spent my childhood and college days in the state of Alabama. So everybody went to church. Everybody was a Christian for the most part. I really quick, I just, things happened. I started this journey asking questions. Most of those questions could not be answered or could not be answered sufficiently. That made me do more research, and the more research I did, the more I felt like that it was issues with this faith and with this religion and with this belief in this deity that many of us call God, or the Abrahamic God. So that's where we are now. And so about 4 years ago, I actually left the faith in 2015, I believe, or 2016. And shortly after that, I started writing the book. The book took me about 2 years to finish. I think we released it not this past August, but August before last. Was it this past? I think it was August before last. But anyway, so we released the book. I've been pleasantly surprised by how it's been received, even by people of the faith. They comment that it is a balanced view, although I'm known for being kind of radical, but the book comes across as a lot more balanced. So absolutely happy for the book, proud of the book, and we're good from there.
Beautiful. And so, greetings everyone tonight. Be one. I thank everybody for joining us tonight. I am posting some. Well, I should have posted that in the chat, but there is a link in the chat. We want to hear from you, and we want you to call in. If you have my phone number, you can call in. Tonight we are talking about losing friends and family after leaving religion. And I'm sure the comments on my videos, our stories are just heartbreaking because those who proclaim to be, have the loving heart, the bleeding heart to, love thy neighbor, all of these commandments and promises or things that they're supposed to stand by, as in my case as Christians, it went out the window the moment I said, you know what, I'm denouncing religion, I'm coming out of Christianity. I just, I've done some research, and oh my gosh, all hell broke loose. I've lost friends, family, affiliations with certain organizations are like, well, since you don't believe in a supreme power anymore, I'm like, all right. Brother Willie, in your book, you begin on page 61. And for those, shout out to those who have ordered their copy of his book. Shout out to y'all. Oh,
Thank you so
I'm looking
much.
forward to the comments. Please, please, please leave a comment or a review on Amazon as well and share. Okay. And if you want the autograph copy, can you are you still offering autograph copies as well? Can you
Yeah, they
let us
can.
what?
Yeah, if you want an autographed copy, you can cash out me at Willie Cartwright 1906 WILLIE. My last name is CARTWRIGHT. So you can cash out me 1999 and your address, and we'll get you a signed autograph copy out to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Beautiful. And as I said, on page 61, this is chapter 4, you begin speaking on this verse that we've seen on bumper stickers. Some people even have it as a tattoo and t-shirts. John 3:16. And you also mentioned Romans 5:8. And so we have with John 16, we all know that one. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, so that we should not perish but have eternal life. And as you stated in quotes, this is probably the most well-known scripture on God's love for us. Can you talk to us about your section in your book on relationships and how that impacts, or how does relationships and religion kind of go hand in hand?
So with that chapter, first of all, let me say hello to
Yes,
Mod Speaks. I love that name,
yes.
Maat. I love it, love it. So yeah, so when I wrote that chapter, I talked about a multi-faceted relationship deal. So it wasn't just about significant others. It was about even relationship of Christians when both parties are Christians and in church, what the church, what the theology, what the pastor, what the religion, the effect that it has on relationships, whether it be significant others, whether it be family members. And then we talk about obviously what happens when you leave the faith and how those relationships are strained or severed a lot of times. So beginning with relationships in the church, of those who are in the church. Um, I think in the book I talk about how growing up, most of the adult men that I knew that were not deacons or ministers really didn't go to church. So most of the women, whether it be the girlfriends, the wives, whatever, they took the kids to church. And then oftentimes you will hear a sermon where the pastor is telling the woman how the man is supposed to conduct himself in a house for his religion. I mean, as far as relationship go. And that woman would come back home and tell the man, and the man would get angry. And I think the reason was twofold. Number one, a lot of times the man could see that this guy was a sham, or that he was running a scam, or that he wasn't authentic. Secondly, no man wants to have another man tell them how to run his household. So it was always that created conflict within a lot of the relationships with people in church. Also, the pastor or the church would emphasize that you need to find you a godly man. You got to find you a God. I mean, what is a godly man? Most of the people I knew that went to church did worse than the people that were not in the church. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to a young woman, and actually, ironically, we were at a church event. My wife and I, even though we're not part of a church or part of religion anymore, there's a church that we go to from time to time to help with some of the community outreach, because they do a fantastic job on community outreach. So we were there one morning, helping to feed the homeless people, some people that was there. It was a young lady, recently finished college, had a dental practice, professional, wonderful young lady. And we got into the conversation about relationships and finding a mate here in Atlanta. And the first thing she mentioned was, yeah, I got to find me a godly man. And I immediately pulled her to the side and said, let me tell you something. Forget about looking for a godly man. Find you a man that's going to treat you well. And he might not necessarily be a godly man in the sense that you're talking
Mhm.
about. So we have to we're binding ourselves to a point looking for the so-called godly man or godly woman. which if you ever been in the church, you've been in the church, you know. I know a lot of guys who went to church to find women, and it was nothing pure about what they were doing. So that's one of the things that we talk about relationships. And then what happens when you leave the church? When I left the church, and I told the story last week or week before last, when my wife and I left the church, we probably didn't tell my mother for about a year. And just to give you some background, my mother and I was extremely close, extremely close. I was the firstborn. Everybody said I was a favorite. We had never had an argument. We had maybe two in my whole life. And those two centered around religion, ironically. But we didn't tell her for a while that we had left the church. And one day she called on a Monday asking us how was church Sunday. And I, without thinking, just said, we no longer believe the way you believe, blah, 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 blah. And they kind of spoke for like 30 minutes and she didn't say anything. And I was like, okay, cool, we good. But I said, when I come home for the holidays, we can discuss it more. A couple of weeks later, my sister, who's a couple of years younger than me, called me and just kind of hysterical. What did you say to Mom? I said, what are you talking about? Mom said, you going to hell, you the Antichrist, your business gonna burn, you're not gonna, your business gonna fail, and you come running back to Jesus. And I was hurt, not as surprised and not as hurt as probably I should have been. My wife was my wife was just like, oh, this is crazy. But it shows you how religion can come between family members. So my mother said all these horrible things about us. Like you, Tieesha, I've lost friends who these are lifelong friends that I've had since high school and college, and they see the stuff I post on Facebook and they've unfriended me, or I have nothing to do with you. I can't talk to you. My wife, who is not as vocal as I am, she's even lost friends because she's challenged some of her devout Christian friends on their beliefs. Usually she's pretty, quiet. She let them say what they want to say. But recently she's been like, well, that's not what I believe. And here's why. And so she's seen another side of some of her friends that she never thought she would see before. But religion is it's so intoxicating to people, and it's so ingrained in who we are. It's amazing. And so I was surprised that we would have this kind of pushback from people in with the relationships that have been severed, and people who no longer talk to you, or even family members. So it's been kind of surprising. And then I'll end with this for this portion right here. We so last week I do a weekly post on Sundays. And I say, good morning, saints. And it's always a meme or a post about something questioning the faith. So it's on Facebook if you want to see it. So last Sunday, it was about God killing all the firstborn in Egypt to get Pharaoh to do what he wanted him to do. And the question was, God killed all the firstborn in Egypt. Why didn't God just kill Pharaoh?
Thank you.
You would be surprised of the mental gymnastics that people come on the post explaining why God didn't kill Pharaoh and had. I said, the firstborn consisted of kids, babies, and maybe even infants. And the twist that people are putting on this story, like, well, he's God, so he can do it, or he killed them because he knew they was going to grow up and become part of the oppressive group that's oppressing the people, oppressing his people, on and on and on. And so I think about how religion and the belief in this deity can make otherwise sane people insane, even when it comes to family. I mean, I've heard people who say, I had a relative, a granddaughter or whatever, who died, but you know what? It made our family closer. God needed her. I'm like, but this is your granddaughter. This is not something that's replaceable. Right. This is supposed to be all powerful, all knowing, whatever God. It's no other way for him to make y'all closer. I know my wife and I talk about the stories of people that we know that something is, they feel like something is taken, that they love something so much, and then something happens to that thing, whether it's a job or whether it's a family member who passes away. And then they say, well, God took that because I loved it too much, and God wanted me to love him. But this is a wife or a child or a parent a lot of times. And so we twist our brains to make this acceptable, that God is doing this. First of all, the fact that you believe that God is doing this it begs the question: why would you worship a God that is that jealous to where He's going to kill your loved one in order to make you love Him more or
That
spend more
sounds like
time
a
with Him?
manipulative enemy to me.
That is a manipulative. That is an abusive lover that you are
Yes.
involved in an abusive relationship. But yeah, so that whole chapter talks about those type of relationships and how it affects our relationships by being in the church and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Joining us, we have Will Cashgrove. How are you?
How you doing, Will?
His mic is off.
Is his mic off?
All right, we're gonna his mic he's muted. Hey, you are unmuted, Will Cashgrove. How are you doing?
We can't hear you, Will.
Hey, I'm going to
Will,
let
if
you
you want to type if you have a question, you
yeah,
can type it in.
joining us right here, we have the beautiful Mayat Speaks. Welcome. How
Mayat
are you
speaks. Hello.
doing?
I love your background. Love
And
it.
unmute
Thank
your mic.
you.
There we go. How are you doing?
Please. I'm happy to be here. I don't usually come on YouTube at this time, and I just popped it on and I saw you were you were live. And I'm glad I found your channel a few weeks ago. I
Thank
found your
you.
channel, Tieesha, and I love what you're about. And Willie, it's nice to meet you.
Nice
And
to
I
meet you.
love the book. I think anytime you're transitioning, yes, I'm gonna have to get the book because I would love to even have you on my channel.
I would love to. I would
Yeah,
love to.
Great.
we talked about spirituality and religion a few weeks ago, and we had some people who were Christian on there, and then we had some people who, who walked away from Christianity. So we're supposed to be talking about that more because when we have those conversations, it's hard it's hard to have those
It
conversations.
is.
Mhm.
But I did experience that with family. I experienced it more with family than I did with people who were friends, but um
What happened?
oh man.
So were
Get
you?
into it. Get into it. We have some questions here because
Yeah.
yes.
So were you Christian first, and then you walked
Yeah,
away? Okay. So
yeah.
tell us what
So
happened. Tell us what happened.
I grew up as a Christian. As soon as I was brought into the world, I was Christian. We were actually Church of Christ. And I don't know
I've
if you're
been there
familiar
too.
with Church of Christ.
I've been there too.
Okay.
For 3 years. For 3 years, I was Church of Christ. Yeah.
They are the one true church.
Yeah.
So that's I talk about how even the division within Christianity is because you know, we talk about it from a perspective of we're Christian, but we also separate ourselves from other people who identify as Christian and saying like you're not good enough. You're not Christian like we're Christian.
And they read from the same book. That's how you can have like 5 church on the same street. I'm like, hold on, why don't y'all just
You,
merge? It's like, no.
you know, I asked a Church of Christ minister. I asked him. He was a close friend. I said to him, I said, what's the difference between Church of Christ? I'm sorry, Church of God. Church was it Church of God, right? You said
So
Church.
there's Church of God in Christ, and then
Church,
there's Church of Christ. Yeah.
Church of Christ. What was that? Was that Church of Christ? Yeah, Church of Christ. So I asked him what was the difference between that, and at the time coming in, I was Baptist, and he basically told me we don't play music in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one other really minor thing, and I just kind of scratched my head. I'm like, but you guys are saying that you're the only true one real. And so I just couldn't. And I pointed out scriptures to him in the Bible about angels
Mhm.
playing harps, you playing music for the love of God.
They have a
So I,
scripture.
and it was still so it's crazy. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's the music thing, and I'm a musician, so I always battled with that, and I was always like looking at the scriptures, like they would say, oh, it's the scripture of having music in your heart, but I couldn't wrap that around, so I did end up leaving. Me and my husband, we ended up leaving Church of Christ, and we ended up going to a Pentecostal church, which is like night and day,
It
right?
is night and day.
And so
It
that
is
was
night
kind
and
of
day.
the transition, because specifically my mother, but my family, who a lot of them are Christian, they did not like us even leaving Church of Christ. You know, that was like, that's a big thing to leave, because that's the one true church.
Yeah.
And then so we were Pentecostal maybe a year, and as we started like studying the book that really kind of helped us kind of go into being in a new state of consciousness, was reading Dr. Joy DeGroy's book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. So that was kind of like the book for us. And then we started like looking at all of her videos, and like we were like up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh my goodness, like we've been lied to. We've been lied to. So then I did not, you know, I'm a researcher. I've always liked to research. So I didn't go into it trying to debunk Christianity. I just went into it because, you know, I was actually trying to prove it, you know, because I had, you know, people were telling me, they kept saying white Jesus, white Jesus. I'm like, okay, let me research this stuff for myself. So then I started like researching, and I was like, wait a minute, you know, you know, this is
not adding up.
right, this is not adding up. So there was a point where we were at my mom's house, and she was like, yeah, come over, I'm gonna fix dinner for you, you know, blah blah blah. And so we were over there, and then she was like, oh yeah, because at the time she didn't know that we had completely walked away. She only knew that we were no longer Church of Christ. So she was like, yeah, let's fix some dinner. And so then she was like, my aunt and uncle were coming up. She was like, oh, well, by the way, I invited my, you know, your aunt and uncle over, and we're gonna have a Bible study. I was like,
oh, set up. Oh,
I said, no, I'm not participating. And she said, you know, you know, and so it was like a back and forth to a point where she was like, well, you don't believe in Jesus? You know, it was like all of that. And then there was like this whole like back and forth. It was like, and I understood it in a sense where now if you believe this way and you're so indoctrinated in it, and now you're telling, I am the only child, and you're telling me that you don't believe in this anymore, and that means that you're going to hell now because you no longer believe in Jesus, right? So that was that, and it got to the point. I mean, it got bad, and even another relative of mine called my husband called him a false prophet. Like, he's a false prophet. He's led you astray.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be saved now. Now they turn it to a personal mission to bring you back and save your soul and guilt trip you, right?
That's what they do. That's what they do. Yeah,
wow.
Wow.
It's crazy. And so we're still dealing with, like, I started my channel, My Aunt Speaks.
Okay.
And even to this day, my mother like thinks my aunt is like demonic, you know, and says, well, I can't really support that. And so, you know, it's you know, it is what it is, you know,
it's
like
wild because with them they have the 10 commandments, which they tend to not follow all 10 of them, but Ma'at is beautiful because of the 42 laws of Ma'at, you know. So, and then Ma'at predates if I'm saying this, Christianity.
Yeah, it does.
So like, Christianity got to cherry pick and choose which ascension master to steal things from and package it for that set of people, but we can't go even further to the source and get the true the true 100% truth, you know. Right. And I really think that what you brought up was this whole thing of having this lie of unconditional truth. Because I find with Christians, they'll say they have unconditional truth, love thy enemy, and they can watch, you know, people get they butts kicked on TV by the enemy and things like that, or the history of what has happened to us, not only in this country but around the world. They have the unconditional love, but when it comes to us, their own flesh blood DNA, there's conditions, and that number one condition is you have to serve my God. You know, it's crazy.
That's what they say, like, my God.
My God. So it's also something else that you touched on at the very end, Ma. You mentioned that your mother thought that was demonic. And so one of the things we have to remember about this religion, the religion being Christianity, and how it was injected in us, is the first thing they did was to take anything that was natural for us coming from the continent of Africa and demonized all of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything that's associated with that continent or being African or from Africa is demonized through Christianity. And so really quick story. My wife and I did a DNA ancestry test about 5-6 years ago. It was excited. We were both 87% Africa. I was 86. She was 87. I have to say it because she wants to be more African than me. So she gets upset if I say it wrong. Right. Yes. But anyway, so she mentioned to me and we were excited. Like, oh, you could. I wanted to be 100. We both wanted to be 100%. But of course, obviously that's not possible. So my wife said to me, she said, you know, we should tell your mom and sister. And I said to my wife, I said, nah, they ain't really feeling that. They're not. So my wife kept on. And I was like, okay, maybe. So during this time, my mother was really sick. So we was going back and forth from Atlanta to Birmingham to see her in the hospital. This one particular time we go to Birmingham to see her and it comes up. So we said to my mother, I said, mother, we did our DNA ancestry. And it says that there were 87%, 86%, 87% African. And here are the countries of West Africa that we're from. And my mother just lost it. Like, no, you're not. That DNA lied to you. Your parents from Alabama, your grandparents from Alabama. And so my wife was just like blown away. She walks out the room, right? And so my wife was like, yo, it's time for us to go. So, I said bye to my mom because it was just like, and we get in the car and my wife, we're talking about it. She's asking me about it. And at the time I was trying to explain to her, I said, especially down south, Christianity is so ingrained in us. Anything that's not Christianity is viewed as demonic. Anytime you talk about anything related to Africa, being African, we've been conditioned over 400 years to believe that all of that is demonic and wrong and bad. And that's basically what was coming out of my mom. Exactly. 6 months later, my wife experienced that with a friend of hers or somebody else. And so now she kind of understands it. But yeah, so that's one of the things too. Again, it's relationships, but it's ancestral relationship. How we can, I've seen people who will literally cry real tears of watching the Passion of the Christ, or thinking about what Jesus went through. But when you mention what their ancestors went through, people who they are DNA related to, biologically related to, there is no emotion whatsoever, no feelings, no empathy whatsoever. And I find that to be just the craziest thing. But you can cry. What is that?
Sorry about that.
So you can. We have to think about that as well. That's all part of the mind games that have been played with us, and oftentimes say we don't know that we're sick because everything that we're doing is so natural to us now. It's so ingrained in us now. The look on people's face when you tell them how dare you be Black and not a Christian, it's almost like you said, I'm gonna cut your head off. I mean, it's just so the look on their faces is like, how can you? I think my wife said the other day, she said she told somebody that today, and they said, how do you not want to be a Christian?
They assume you're atheist too.
Yeah, and they automatically assume that you're atheist or devil worship. Yeah. And so I had to correct the guy the other day. I told you. Yeah, a guy called me an atheist, and I'm not opposed to it, but I told him, I said, I never told you I was an atheist. There's a lot between not being a Christian and being an atheist. There's a lot in the middle of that. So, but because they see Christianity as the only true, one religion, anything else
in this
is considered atheist to them.
Wow. Yeah, because in the South, they don't even ask you. They ask you. The question they ask you is, what church do you go to? They
don't ask you if you go to church. And Tieesha got a story because she moved down here from Seattle or Cincinnati, and she got a rude awakening with that.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I was actually listening, and thank you, Maya Speaks, and welcome to Sharon. But before we get to me, I have videos about all of that. Welcome, Sharon. Oh my gosh. This woman right here, she is responsible. When I was like directionless, I didn't know where direction's a word, but yeah, I was just lost. Oh my gosh. I don't want to say, I don't know. I won't say that either. I was just a naive adult. She took me under her wing.
Hi,
And that's
Sharon.
what I say. Those who I call family, like my sister, my brothers, most time I'm not related to them. I have one sister and one brother. Of course, that's my family, but people think I have like a huge family. No, because people who have just taken me under their wings, just showed me so much love, support, and kept in touch just to, make sure I stayed on the right path. And that's why I'm like, I hold myself accountable because people like Sharon, Brother Willie have invested in me, and so I'm like, okay, I have to give you a return on your investment by not messing up and also, taking someone else under my wing doing that same thing. So my speaks, I want to say thank you so much for sharing. If you want to stay with us and chime in, you are welcome. But Sharon, how are you doing?
Hi,
I
Sharon.
am good, but I have learned just as much, if not more, from you than you have learned from me. And I know we're talking about religion right now, but some stuff kind of still sticks with me like out of the mouth of babes. I
Mhm.
believe that I can learn from the youngest person and the oldest person. So, and I I grew up obviously being as old as I am in the church.
Young.
I'm like Steve Harvey used to say on Kings of Comedy, who went to church every day of the week. Yeah, we were those kids.
Mhm.
And you were also kind of like my mom kind of told us, if you don't understand something, ask questions. But in the same breath, certain things you ask questions about, people would get upset. And
Mhm.
I never forgot, as I got older, and you break away from church when you first leave home because they made you go all the time.
Now
And
we
then
were active duty. We were active duty, and so I shared it with people. I said, you know what? I didn't really go to church, but when I went to boot camp, everybody else got a break on that Sunday
yep,
holiday routine. And so I was like, you know what? I'm getting a break. I get to walk around the base without the RDC with me. You could talk to other people in church, and and so once I grew up, I'm like, that's the same as the plantation. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I'm like, something's wrong. And I actually got baptized in boot camp.
in boot camp.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be honest, as I started going to church, I think what did it for me, well, it was two different incidents.
Mhm.
One was when I didn't understand something the pastor was saying, and I asked him why and where could I find it.
Mhm.
And he gave me this look, and then he gave me some kind of answer that wasn't an answer. I was
It
smart
brushed you
enough to
off.
know it wasn't an answer. And I said, but I'm still not understanding. I said,
Mhm.
I tell you what, I know you got a lot of people. If you can just tell me where I can go to reference it in the Bible, then I can start reading it. And if I have further questions, this man got upset. I'm talking about where you could visibly see a pastor's face
Mhm.
become upset.
Wow.
And so that was the first thing that did it for me. Now, the second one was me and my mom had found a church where we had moved to. And I mean, we were neat. We weren't what they consider hoochie dressed or whatever. I mean, pressed and everything. But we were in pants, which was awkward for both of us because, you always girls wear dresses.
Yes.
And when the church secretary walked up to us and said, "Thank you for coming today. It's good to see you again. But dress down Sunday is every third Sunday."
Oh.
Let's just say I'm glad my mama was there because my mama saw what nothing Jesus on my face. So I was
Wow.
like, okay, so that did it for me. And so then I started kind of searching on my own. But I'm gonna tell you what I feel in trying to do the little research. I'm not well versed as you guys. Christianity, we know where it came from.
Mhm.
It came from the others. But I think because as slaves in a country that you had no idea about, you had no other family and friends here, and that's all you had was to learn. And you may not even know how to read the Bible yet, but you're hearing how this God is so merciful, so loving. And so I would imagine a hopeless people wanted to have something to have hope in. So
Mhm.
I feel like that's where that strong embeddedness of Christianity came from. Because if you notice, they started going to church and they learned how to read their Bible. And there's this man that's going to save us.
Mhm.
So I mean, that was to me. I felt like in the early years that Bible was the hope. Now, as we grow and we learn, it's not hope, because where is I'm a spiritual being, but I
Mhm.
still question, where is this God that these people have lived so oppressed? And if you go back into it, they lived exactly like that Bible said you're supposed to live. So you
Wow.
telling me 400 years later, he still sees no mercy to pull you out of despair? I I I, I don't know. I'm just so torn, because I also still have family that's in the church, and like I said, I'm not that versed. So I kind of want to learn more before I start, saying one way or the other. But I
Yeah.
don't go into church. I mean, why? What am I going in church for? I'm not trying to be friends with the first lady. I'm not trying to have people that's supposed to be teaching the Bible, not denouncing what's in that Bible that they swear by. I'm not trying to be a fashion show. So
Mhm.
like people have even turned that little hope of religion into
A
something
bit.
crazy. So I let them have it, honey. If I'm gonna pray to somebody, I'm gonna just pray to the being and sun that I see in the sky. Sun man, can you give me some rays of light? I mean, cause at least I can see him and he gonna make me sweat. I know that. I
Brother
don't
Willie,
know.
I
I'm
gotta
not
say
trying to sound
that.
funny.
No, it's
I'm just kind of
absolutely.
over it. And it's all to this thing where I do understand what you were talking about, Mr. Willie, when you said how people would get angry and the family split up. But I don't get into that. Regardless of how I feel, you got to deal with what you're dealing with, and I got to deal. Why can't we just understand that we're not going to think alike? I mean, there are some family, honey. I got a sister that if you try to say sideways about the Bible, you going now. I was like, well, ain't we in hell? I'm sorry, I'm the defiant child, but
That's
I'm
fine.
serious.
That's fine. No, it's fine.
I
I
mean,
think
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say no. I think for me though, I before I left the faith and let everybody know, family and friends, I think I had already established myself as the kind of person that you just don't, come up to it and be like, you should think this way, this way. I mean, I've always been kind of on the outside, and so I never had a big issue. My sister and I agreed to disagree, and she kind of laughed at some of the stuff. She's still devout, and I tell her sometimes, I say, eventually you're going to come over to the other side. My nephew, who's 30 now, he called me a few years ago and asked me about my take on religion, and what I told him was, before you make a decision, or if you haven't thoughts, just read everything you can find. Just read everything you can find. I said, I'm not going to influence you one way or the other. I said, but unlike me, you had an opportunity to decide as to whether or not you wanted to be Christian. I was in the church from the time I remember opening my eyes, and so I didn't really have that choice. And so one of the things that I tell people all the time about this journey is that it's not church hurt or people being angry with the church or whatever that make people non-believers, humanists, skeptics, atheists, or agnostic. What happens is that we ask questions and those questions can't be answered or not answered sufficiently enough. And so we take it upon ourselves to start doing the research. And when you start, it's like pulling a thread. You pull the thread and it keeps going and it keeps going. You're like, wait a minute. So this ain't, wait a minute. So this, and before you know it, you're questioning everything. The difference between us who've been in the church and left the church and the ones who don't, not that they don't have questions, because you got to have questions if you're in the church, unless you are a robot, because there are always things every Sunday that you'll hear a pastor or you'll read or someone will read to you out the Bible that you have to have questions about. So, but we take it on ourselves, or we took it upon ourselves to do the research. Those other people refuse to do the research because they're either A, scared of what they're going to find out, B, been told that you can't ask questions and don't do the research, right? And so that's really the difference. And I ask people, because some of the stuff is just so irrational But you don't see it until you're outside of the church. Because when you're in it, it seems like it makes sense to you. But when you're out, not only is it's irrational, it's extremely irrational. And you're like, how could I ever go through, in my case, 40 plus years believing this when it makes no sense now? So yeah, so we have to, like I said, so family members, they, at this point now, they kind of leave me alone. They don't, because first of all, they know that I'm going to debate them or question them until the very end. So they'll give up and say, okay, whatever. But the fallback is always, well, I'm just going to believe. I'm still going to believe. Or it's better to believe and be, and be wrong than to believe and not believe and be wrong or whatever, however it goes. So, so we talk about all those kind of things. But yeah, and the book, I address all of those issues, family and friends and relationships, and what the church does to our psyche about relationships on that, and that's as part of the book as well. Because I saw it every day. I had a mother who was devout and a stepfather who never went to church. We were in church 3-4 days a week. We did revivals every week during the summer, hot as it was, outdoor. I mean, all of that. So I saw it from both sides. I saw people who would go to church and they would be drunk right after church or drunk before church. And I mean, the whole 9 yards. And we all have seen this. We've seen people in the church act no better than the people outside of the church. But as long as you're saved, you can pretty much do whatever it is that you want to do. So there's and thank you, Sharon, for your comments. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just and that's what boggles my mind. Like you said, it's not about me not liking the people in the church or I'm mad at the church, and it's when you become because I started young asking questions because it was one of those things where you ask questions, but then once you start asking questions, now you're trying to define which things I should ask a question about. Yeah. And I just felt like, now I grew up from logical people now. That's what's crazy, because they grew you up to be that strong, independent person, but not over here. Right. Do as I say, not as I do. And I just have never understood do you know that just in my observation, when you was talking about how church people want to debate you, most of them don't even know the Bible. They only know what they know because of what the person in the pulpit is preaching. He could be telling you anything, but you going by only what he says. And those couple of verses that he'll give you during a sermon. No, if you really want to denounce or you want to learn more about your Christianity, you got to read that Bible from front to the back to be able to know if you for it or against it.
Well, you also, and so we talked about this last week as well. I was reading a book, and it said that the two groups that know least about their faith, number 2 on the list is Hispanic Catholics, but number 1 on the list is African American Christians who know the least about the Bible. So not only do you need to read the Bible, understand the Bible, but you need to read outside of the Bible as well. You need to understand how this Bible was put together, why it was put together, where it came from, what's the history behind it. All of that in order for you to have a respectable dialogue with someone who may be against or maybe challenging some of your beliefs. And so I get into those discussions, and if I see that someone is not equipped enough to have this dialogue with me, because if I'm telling them basic stuff, if I'm telling you that the true authors of the Bible are not known, and you telling me that it's John, Mark, Luke, we got a problem. Just off that's basic information. So yeah, again, but this is because we're ingrained in this from birth. And so we take this as truth because it's been around with us just like breathing has. We don't question breathing. We don't question church. We just believe. We believe that it has to be a God. Some of that is also because our people collectively, we're in such a bad state collectively until we have to have something outside of us to give us hope, or that we have to have hope in.
Right.
And so that's a strong part of it too. But we're gonna get away from that too. We're gonna get away from that eventually as well. But that's also part of it. That's also.
We have a comment from Papa Soul Searcher, and thank you everybody for leaving your comments and engaging. This is amazing. Papa Soul Searcher, while in Bible study one day, I started to ask questions and kept asking questions every time. My ex No, she said X. Said to me, I go to Bible study if you're going to ask so many questions. That's when I knew she was gone. Absolutely. Because
Wait a minute. Why go to Bible study if you're going to ask so many questions? Ain't that where you're supposed to ask questions? Wow. Wow. Papa Soul Searcher, thank you for your comments on my YouTube page too. I appreciate that as well.
Relationship, with your significant other just didn't work out. And yeah, so thank you so much. Wow. We have to catch up. I will video chat you soon, but I appreciate everything that you added tonight. I love you so much.
Thank
I
you
love
so
you
much.
too. Talk to
Thank
you soon.
You for your comments. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Willie. I'll try to get your book.
All right, no problem. Nice to meet you.
Greetings, Andrew. How are you? I got him on mute.
Peace.
How you doing?
How you doing, brother? How you doing?
Peace, brother. How you doing? I'm well.
Doing great. I'm wonderful.
Yes. What do you have for us tonight on? Did you have a situation of losing family and friends when you left religion or a belief system?
So in a sense, like it was I guess from my experience, it was more so like the counterparts that I grew up with. And like our, I guess, gradual exodus from the church. So it was more so us kind of losing, the people that we grew up to a certain extent, like, the adults in our life when we were growing up. So pretty much, everybody who I can say I was in diapers with, have all but left the church. And, my parents, they are like, super religious. So their counterparts are still the same people that, I grew up watching. And, their mindset is, basically all of us, have taken the heathen road and, none of the lessons that we were taught, stuck with us. And there's like, a continuous ongoing prayer meeting for us to return back to the church.
Same thing here, brother.
So like we'll be in time for the rapture. You know what I'm saying? When that clock never goes off. So for my situation, because I think it was more of like an unconscious exodus. Like no one ever kind of like made this blatant or defiant outcry like, hey man, I'm never coming back, that kind of thing. It was just as soon as like the way was clear, it was like, man, I ain't stepping foot back into that place. And the elders, if you would, kind of just got the mindset out, well, I guess they're gone. So for us, it was more so like just this unconscious thing that like that system wasn't gonna serve us in life. And for some of us who like you, brother, that were born in it, once we were able to interact with the world in a certain way, or should I say myself was able to interact with the world in a certain way, it made no sense to keep going down that road. And it's like the older that you get, the more it's exposed to be a useless exercise, really, because you spend your life hoping for something that ultimately never happens. And then at the end of the road, it's those that are left behind basically who kind of like pray you into heaven and, they eulogize you and like, man, he had to make it, these type of things that there's no basis to it. So, I'm actually, I guess, more so still in the process, of like just those around just kind of getting the message unconsciously, like, hey man, this guy is gone. Like he they were like, hey, so when you coming back? It's just like, I haven't been there in years.
I don't miss
I don't know when I'm coming back. So
yeah, we talk about it's almost like I always say, once you let the toothpaste out the tube, it's hard to put it back in. I run, funny, my wife and I, we attempted to go back, kind of like what happened to you, brother. We her mother and my sister was, behind our back collaborating, praying to get us back, and then some stuff, some health stuff happened to us, and so there were, people were like, people close to us, including my mentor, who's a minister, who's a wonderful guy, by the way, a great guy. But their comments were, well, these things are happening to you guys because you left the covering of God or you left the covering of Jesus. So because it's so ingrained in you, you kind of like, it could be some truth to that. And so we tried to go back, brother, but we sat in that church one Sunday and we just could not do it anymore. And so we completely cut it loose 3 or 4 years ago now for good. But yeah, it's one of those things that, with the internet and the information that's out there now, people can do the research for themselves and you can decide whether or not if it makes sense, it sense to you. What I think a lot of people have done is that in spite of the lack of evidence, and in spite of the evidence to the contrary, they're going to still believe because A is ingrained in them, B because it's fear. A large part of religion is the fear factor. These people are fearful of going to hell or burning in hell, or they want God to bless them or not bless them. So you get a lot of that. But what counters that is research and reading and studying. When you learn the true origins of hell and heaven, that takes that burden off the top of your head. And some of the other stuff. This person, Christina Williams, said, what is amazing to me is the white people are digging and digging in Africa, but they are not finding any of these Bible characters. Why not?
Yeah.
And that's logic. And we
things in museums and so that has to tell you something. I gotta tell you something.
Yeah, when I get into these discussions with these people, and some of them be ministers, some of them be, long time people in the church and believe that they know the faith up and down. And I always said to them, but there is little to no archaeological, unbiased, corroborated evidence of anything in the Bible that you're saying. I said, if you look at the main characters and the main events of the Bible, there is zero archaeological, corroborated, unbiased evidence of any of that. So you mean to tell me, even if you can't find a grave of Jesus, you can't find a grave of Abraham or Moses, or the only thing that you can find some historical evidence of is, I think, is King David. Is about the only thing there's something. What's it, Christina? Because those names never existed in real life. Those characters never existed in real life. But religion is the only thing that we will believe in or follow without evidence.
Yeah, without evidence.
Yep.
Because the faith drug, if they could have bottled that up and sold it, man. I mean, because I think it was who is it? Dick Gregory said that hope is a poor man's drug. Don't get high on it.
He's absolutely right.
That hope of things unseen, and the evidence of what was the evidence of things hoped for, and the something of things unseen. Like, it's just you got to believe in what is not there, because that is what validates you. That's what gives you your badge.
But brother, I was saying, when you're beaten down from birth, when you're told from birth that you are nothing and that you're worthless, and then you live in the conditions that we live in this country collectively, the only thing that you have is hope, and they continue to feed us that hope and telling us to wait, and your reward is in heaven, and so forth and so on. And I'm asking people, wait a minute, we are the most religious people on the face of this earth, the African American demographic. But other people that don't look like us get their reward now, and they're wilding out. They cut up every day. I mean, they've done everything from genocide to rape to torture, everything.
Cheat steal, all that.
Yeah. But us, we gotta wait until so it don't. Again, it's one of those things where logic don't come into play for us. It is our collective belief in this system, in this faith, is illogical. It is illogical.
Brother, to your point, from my personal experience, because now that I'm at the age where I'm at, and my brothers and I, like we have constant conversations of introspection, and we take the stance that we actually grew up in a cult-like setting, and the organization that I came from, they are based out of Portland, Oregon, which is historically one of the most racist cities in America. And the way that this organization is split, it's like you have the melanated population on the East Coast and the primarily Albion population on the West Coast. And when you see the conditions of the polarized sides, like you see how, the other folks are living on the West Coast, the condition of their churches, how these families seem so stable. But then when you come to the East Coast, it doesn't matter whether it's in New York, they have branches up and down the East Coast, up and down the West Coast, in Africa. When you see the conditions of the people, the churches, it's like night and day. And in 2020, this was at like the height of the pandemic, because everything was like virtual, all of that stuff. They were still holding services online. Right about the time when we had the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, the world was pretty much in an uproar. I mean, they were protesting out in Europe because of George Floyd. This church organization chose at that point in time, like, we had already been in the midst of COVID for a few months. There wasn't nothing new about that. It was the lockdowns, etc. They chose at that point in time to put a post up on the social media with all like this COVID information, like, wearing masks, all this other stuff. And it was like, it set the young population of the church off. One of the, she's younger than me. Like she's, I think still pretty active in the church, but she went digging, like doing research. Like she found pictures of like Klansmen that were in the church sanctuary, like under the banner where it said Jesus saves. It was like,
yes, I saw that.
It
was like, are you, is this what you guys represent? And like, it started such a uproar that, like you guys care more about this pandemic than what's happening with your melanated population, which is pretty much what the whole demographic of the East Coast is like, y'all don't have no love for us. And it got so bad that they actually pulled the post down. But, it was just more indication to me of just how this religion is used to one extent on one side, which is, for us is like this spiritual cleansing, we're on our way to heaven, yada, yada, yada. But then on the West Coast, like you see opulence, like you see money in motion, like you see these well put together organizations, like money is passing through there, and it's just the crux of like the disrespect. Like they use us almost as a battery pack to power their house, and they're getting their heaven here on earth, like, sprawling campgrounds, etc. But then when you go down to Georgia and Atlanta, like one of their branches is dead off in the hood, like downtown Atlanta. So, it for us, it really is like this cult-like thing where it's like, we're going to fleece these, these darkies over here, and get out heaven on earth while, they suffer on their way to heaven.
Yeah,
And
I think
I'm sorry. They use us to spread the word because we'll put the magnets on our car. We'll share it, without compensation, and welcome them in, and they milk us, they vampire us for everything that they can. They do that.
Yep.
And it's sad. And like you said, you have to step outside of the church, outside of religion to see what is going on. And then, it's like, wow, I cannot believe that I was supporting that. I was, a part of that. But after that, it's like, okay, never again. And then it's not like you're trying to recruit others to come out, because it's like you're going to believe what you're going to believe. But with friends and family, it's been coming up on 7 years now since I announced that I was free from religion. No, you cannot guilt trip me back. And I think my way of, just, I don't know, proving them wrong, and I don't have anything to prove to them, but they can see I'm not burning to hell. I'm not struggling. I'm not the richest woman in the world, but no, all the bad things that you said about me, this gonna happen, until you get right with God. It's like they do the whole Color Purple, until you get right with God,
Oh
ain't
yeah,
nothing work out for you,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you
yeah.
live to show that you're still existing, you're a complete being. And once you see the manipulation, the what is it, the Jim Jones, fear tactics and cult like following happening, you're like, wow, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, the unsaved and the saved all end up in the ICU.
Mhm.
And, like this thing about how, if you live this Christian life and all, like there's like this unconscious facade that there's going to be this rosy ending or something like that. But like now that I'm older, right? And, the older generation, they're passing on, like
Mhm.
there's no different in the exit. There's no difference. Like
There's no difference.
you're gonna die peacefully, or you're gonna have some type of illness or something like that that's gonna take you out the box in some uncomfortable manner. Like one of my guys, his mom just passed, and like she was one of the most devout. I mean, of course, now like social media is going crazy with the eulogies. She was this, she was that, she gave everything, like da 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 da. But like that's my guy, you know what I'm saying? So I know the inside story. Like this lady, and because I grew up around her, like she literally like was one of my godmothers. Like it's painful, like to see
Yes, it
how
is.
these people, how they go out. Like she went out horribly. And my man, like he is left to pick up the pieces. Like, when you looking for this great beyond, like there's almost this unconscious, non-preparing attitude. Like a will is taboo. To have a trust is, of course, that's white folks stuff. But when you leave, like you leave the people that loved you the most to pick up the pieces, like
So,
GoFundMe's, like all this other nonsense. And it's like, where was this brotherly Christian, this bubble that was supposed to
that's why
secure
churches,
you
Bro,
it,
and raise you up? Like they
let me tell you
literally
this.
left this lady to like die in squalor.
Let me
So,
tell you this
you
story.
know,
Let me tell you this story, bro. Absolutely. QB, you said something. They sneak in snide remarks at every family gathering over the last few years. I just try to keep to myself while being cordial, but it can be so difficult. You're right, man. I don't. I have my family. My family don't really do that. My sister. Um, if I'm at our house, I was at the house a couple of years ago, and I got ready to leave, and she said something, and I said something. She said, "Well, don't start that antichrist stuff or whatever." But I have a fraternity brother who's really really good friend of mine, and right after I wrote this book, I went on he has a radio program too, so he had me on his radio program, and we discussed it, and he got a little defensive about it. He started asking questions, and I would come back with, well, that's not right, da da da, and he got really defensive, which was. I never saw that side of him before. Now we've been friends for 25 years, but now anytime he made comments at me on social media or whatever, he referred to me as the heathen. Right. The first couple of times I was kind of like, yeah, okay, that's cute, well, whatever. Now it's like every single time. So QB, to your point, absolutely. Really quick, the story I was gonna make was about my mother. So I told you guys my mother became a minister about 10 years before she passed away. But she had been in this church for 30 years or so. She was the assistant minister of this church, a little small church in Alabama. Whenever we would go home, my wife and I would go. We would give, and whatever we would give would be like more than like half the church gave put together. It wasn't we didn't give a lot. It was just, that's how small the church was. But no, she was in the church for 30 years. She was assistant minister. She would be the first person at the church on Sunday. Like she would get there before the janitors got to open the door. Like when we were kids, we were younger. She would take us with her, and we would stand outside, and she would say a prayer at the church step until the deacon would come to unlock the doors. And then finally, she got her own set of keys. So in 2017, she passed away. So you expecting the church, they're gonna take care of her. They're gonna make sure that they're gonna. So my sister called me. My sister, so it's just my sister and I. So my sister said, "Well, I don't really have any money," and she didn't leave any life insurance or anything. Even though she was a life insurance agent for 30 years, she didn't leave any life insurance. She didn't no life insurance, and we were helping to supplement her income. My wife and I and my sister. So if she couldn't afford, she could have just told us, and we would have kept the insurance policy going, but she didn't. So my sister said, well, at the time I was emotional. So I said, listen, we'll just pay for everything. We called up a friend of ours who had a funeral home. He was going to give us a discount on that. Another friend he owned a cemetery. He was going to give us a discount on that. It still was about 10 grand. And I had a buddy in Birmingham who was on the police force. He said, I got a couple of cops we can escort, and we can charge you half price for that. But it still was going to be about 10 grand. And so my wife was like, listen, we need to really think about this. That's not, I know it's your mother and everything, but, we got to look at this. So I made the decision. I said, listen, okay, she's going to be cremated. The first thing my mom said to us when she found out that we were not in church anymore was like, well, who's going to bury you? Who's going to do your funeral? And we're like, that's not even what we're thinking about. So the pastor of the church, check this out. The pastor of the church called me a couple of days later. And he said, this is what he said. He said, Willie, I hear that you're going to have your mother cremated. I said, yep. He said, well, we were preparing food for the Passover, but if you're not going to do that, then okay, fine. Click. He didn't say why you're not burying her. I mean, why you're not having a funeral? Is it money? Do you need anything?
Wow.
I'm telling you, it's been 5 years.
Wow.
Do you know that I have not heard from anybody in that church? Not a how you doing? Sorry to hear about your mom. And my sister, who was living in Birmingham at the time, and up until last year, never heard from anybody in that church. No, they didn't give nothing. They didn't contribute anything. It was nothing. I had her cremated. My sister eventually paid us back for half of it, but that was it. And so
it's the poverty religion.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes to your point. It was like, what's the whole? You're doing all this for whatever. Actually, it's the wrong reasons, but it's making no sense to me. All of it, all the way around. So yeah. Your point is.
My dad was he started out Sunday school teacher, Sunday school superintendent, minister, to assistant pastor, to pastor. And it was that pastor job that took my dad out the box. Like, that was one of the most demanding. Like, I mean, for any single thing, call the pastor. And my father, his disposition is like, when he's in something, he's in something. And my pops was always there. My pops ended up passing out on the pulpit, all kind of wild shit, till it was like, yo, you can't do this no more. And as my dad's health declined, the concern declined with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point now where it's like my mom is like begging, like, hey, can you tell such and such to come to the church? Your dad really needs pray, all that stuff. It's this out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not gonna beef with no church members, but when I get these calls of concern, like, how's your dad doing? I'm like, you know where he live at? Mm-hmm. Like, this was your pastor. Like, this was the go-to guy. Like, he literally had to retire because this was one of the things that taxed his body so much till it gave out. Yeah. So I definitely understand that benign neglect. And, that was one of the main things that really put a bad taste in my mouth, because when I talk to these people, the quintessential answer is, oh, we're praying, right? We're praying. And I'm like,
they ain't doing nothing. They ain't doing nothing.
Like, do you know that my father needs, like, he needs attendance 24 hours a day? Like, my dad needs equipment. Like, almost not even a month ago, I purposely ran a guilt trip on the now present pastor. Like, hey, listen, we spending money over here. Like, all that prayer stuff, like, my dad needs equipment to get from his bedroom to the bathroom. Like, what's up? And then it's like, oh, my brother. They, whatever they had to do and cut the check, maybe like a couple days later, I'm like, this is actual help. Not the prayers that you guys are throwing up to to the sky that's going to fall down with the rain.
Yeah.
So, you know, that poverty religion, that poverty mindset where, you know, this Job situation, like my dad is not Job. The
They
fuck
love
is that? You know?
Bro, I done had these discussions with so many Christians about the whole poverty thing. I think I might even touch on it in my book about the whole poverty thing. But there's a couple of books by Dr. Cone. One is called the Cross and the Lynching Tree, and it talks about the relationship that Black Christians have with Jesus Christ and Him down on the cross, and why we believe that we should suffer. And that suffering, not only do we believe that, but it becomes something that we expect. It's something that we almost are looking forward to. And then there's another book called God of the Oppressed. Same, it talks about the same thing. And so, but back in the 50s or the 60s, Dr. Cone coined the liberation theology. That's what it is. It's liberation theology. And so what it is just it's our excuse for being, it's the excuse that we give ourselves for us being in the collective condition that we're in. We're in this condition because we're supposed to suffer because Jesus suffered, or we're in this position because we're God's chosen people and He's punishing us for disobeying Him, 2,000 years ago. All of that stuff that goes into the play, and it's so many different groups with different beliefs, and they all come together. But at the end of the day, it's designed to keep us where we are. Oftentimes, I said is Christianity, especially Westernized Christianity, is the religious arm of white supremacy.
Oh yeah.
See how it keeps us where we are. It's stop. I mean, we got Black pastors will come in and tell us, let's don't be so radical. Let's just pray and let's just wait. And it's always the young people that go against that. And now, for the first time, and I mentioned this to a group the other day, for the first time in our history, we're seeing revolutions being ran and organized and led by non-church members, by non-church people. This is the first generation, because although there were non-believers in the civil rights movement, there's a book out about that that you can pick up too that talks about those people. But the people on the front line today, you go to a lot of these protests. A lot of these are young people. And 30% of young people today are what's called non-believers. They're not affiliated with any church. They don't believe in anything. They're everything from just out of the church to full out atheists. And those are the people that are leading, the revolution now. And I'm glad to see it.
Of course, because this generation right here is very specific. Because we were the last era that ran through that religious gauntlet, and because of the internet coming into play, everything speeding up in life, information now is at the fingertips. You can't beat a person into heaven. You can't guilt trip them into heaven anymore. Yep. Because the information is right there in front of your faces. Now it's actually a choice to make, like not this thing that's based off of fear tactics. So this generation right here, especially those of us who come from like the late 70s, the 80s, like we saw the internet come into play. Like we were the last generation of going to arcades to play video games. So our brains are wired so differently that we look through the world through such a you just can't tell us everything lens. Like we have to see things for ourselves, experience. There has to be empirical proof to go along with it. So for our parents, like even now, like it's such a crux to be in this place because you are able to look at the older generation objectively. Our parents didn't have that because they were so still immersed into that religious doxology that when they looked at their older generation, they were like, well, I want to be like such and such, the prayer warriors of old. I want to be no goddamn prayer warrior. Like, no, bro. Like what I look like living on my knees. What I need to be doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, this generation is so action oriented that we see our quote unquote salvation at our own fingertips. If we don't do the work, it's not going to happen. sitting around looking up to the sky, like for me and my people, like it never served us. No matter what our parents say, like, look at all the miracles that happened. And when you look at it, it was like, nah, you took us to the doctor, we took medicine, and we got better in the time frame that the doctor said, not what the pastor was saying, like, we just going to keep praying and they're going to wake up one day and be all right. Nah, we took medicine that whole 7 days and we were straight afterwards and went right back to school. So,
I like what you said about, sitting idle. And when we look back at the elders, to me, prayer in the church is out of style because like you said, now we have information, we have access to other people, we have the internet. Like, we've never met in person, but we have this instrument here that we're using constructively to connect with other like minds and, work towards a purpose. Back in the day, the church was that because, unless you had a phone tree, but, that was that gathering place. Okay, we knew to come here at this time to meet with other people and go through, our plan of the day. Brother Willie, you're from Birmingham. And a few years ago when I drove across country, actually, I was in Birmingham. I walked through downtown, walked through the tunnel, visited the Southern States Negro League Museum. And on my walking tour, I wanted to visit the 16th Street Baptist Church. And shout out to our sister, Art Kathy, your fellow sister from Birmingham, who now calls Georgia home. And a few days ago, I shared a video. I was watching TBN. No, I was actually channel surfing. I was channel surfing. I was not watching TBN. And they had some kind of special on, and they kind of sort of hijacked Tariq Nasheed's title of Hidden Colors. It was like American Hidden History or something like that. And so I just kind of stopped and I'm watching, and they're talking about the 16th Street Baptist Church. It's on my Facebook page. Go check it out. And I'm watching it, and apparently this guy, he's a pastor, but he was a child when the 16th Street bombing happened. And he's sitting there like, this fool starts crying. How could they do that to them girls? And he'd go, like the cry, like deep down in my heart, I still love you. Yeah, he did one of those. I'm like, this Negro crying. Then it was an old lady. She got this old lady wig on, it's all curled. But the thing that was so messed up, the wig cap was showing. I'm like, now they don't. No. This is not the best to come out of the church. And that's when I'm like, so it was Art who had chimed in and said, hey, the dude, that's my old pastor. I'm like, wow. It was just so funny. But how in that time you let it was actually 5 girls who were actually bombed in the church.
One survived. Yeah.
You mean to tell me y'all let some other jokers come and bomb y'all children and y'all didn't do a damn thing about it? Man, okay, I would have, called on the spirit of my great ancestor, Mark Essex, and tow that damn city up. You bomb, I only have one. You do something to that one, it's on. But I'm like, these mugs sat there and they still go back to pray. So I was fixing to walk over there, to see the church. But in that area, a brother stopped me and said, nah, sister, it's not safe. Don't walk over there. And that goes to show, like, okay, this church is sitting here, has not been anything positive, an asset to the community. You have people, walking around and sleeping in the park. It's not safe to walk over there. Like, this is supposed to be like, something of American history significance in this country. But I'm like, wow. So y'all let Musk come bomb y'all church, and then you can't even walk over there. And I think it was 2019 when I went over there. I'm like, it ain't even safe to walk in the daggone area. So what is the church there for? What has it done for the community? Nothing.
If you in my book, I talk about the mindset that the church gives us or creates within us, and that's part of it for us. And I got a whole section where I talk about all of the atrocities that happened to us, the bombing of the church in Carolina a few years ago, and the young lady, the white police officer who shot the brother in his home or whatever, and what the judge and the bailiff did to them. Understand that when we talk about Christianity being the religious arm of white supremacy, it
Yeah.
does something to us psychologically as well. So we have, whether we admit it or not as a collective group, we have a unconscious reverence to white people. That's why they can do the things they do to us and get away with it. We've been taught turn the other cheek. I say this almost every time I'm on any kind of interview or anything. Black people, we're the only people that live our life through the prism of biblical scripture. Everybody else lived their lives through self-preservation.
Natural
We're the
law.
ones who always got to say, well, let's be good to everybody. Let's treat everybody fairly. Let's treat everybody the same. Let's turn the other cheek. And that's foundational to the faith that we're brought up into. That hurts us on every level. So that unconscious psychological reverence to white people and everything that's white is what allows George Zimmerman to still be walking around today. And people like that, and we've not done anything. But if I'm at a club and you step on my foot, you look just like me, you're my brother, I will kill you. I will kill you. But all of these, we out here walking around, and the stuff that George Zimmerman and some of those other people have done to us, and we've done nothing. Because again, being in church, and the first thing that you see in church is a white God, white angels. You go to school, your teacher is white, the police officer is white. So you develop this unconscious bias toward white people, and it doesn't allow you to be the people that you're supposed to be.
One of the greatest albums, one of the greatest albums that I listened to, or a series of albums by a great group. I interviewed them year before last, and it was the Brothers United Front. And in their music, they do not use the N word. Instead, they use the C word, the other name for Ritz. Because
Oh yeah.
Saltines.
I thought of saltines. Yeah, I thought about that. So I'm listening to a song, and there's one of the songs that I think TikTok and Instagram Reels, they wanted you to keep on using it, and it had the N word in it. So I'm just saying to myself, what if I change that word and just said saltines? And the song took on a whole different meaning. I'm like, wow, like I don't feel aggressive towards my own people, but I'm like, wow, okay, it's definitely programming us for self-destruction with the music. And I'm like, this is something. Check out the video. It's on here. Just type in Tieesha Essex United Front, or you can just go watch their videos directly, United Front. But also David Banner's The God Box.
Yeah.
That is a great one, because he makes mention, now him growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, and just the passion coming out and just saying the things just so powerfully and just elegantly is like, wow, okay. It makes you rethink a lot of things. And I think if I was still in the church mindset, I would have, been so focused on, we need to try to win him back to God. We need to win him back to God to save his soul, and miss the entire message. Call yourself a God, act like a God. Don't call yourself anything less. It's amazing.
Somebody commented earlier that they mentioned that the hip hop, and when hip hop started. Now I'm a product. I was born. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, but through the 90s, I was in college, and so my wife and I had this discussion just the other night, and I was like, "Honey, I miss the black people from the 90s. I miss those people. The music had us proud to be black. It was the first time I had listened to or talked about or heard about anything other than Baptist. It was, Nation of Islam, 5%ers. It was all of that. It was growth. It was growth for me. And I learned about all this other stuff, but it also instilled black pride in me and loving my people, like loving my people every single day, seeing people that you were proud to be black. And where have those people gone? I mean, they were revolutionaries too, because we were in the 90s. But now I see a lot of those people who are now 40s and early 50s, and they are the exact replicas of their mothers and fathers and grandparents as well. They're very mellow, everything is about the church and everything is about, you know, it's just it's wild. I remember, but I'm like 30 years ago, it was about fight the power, and less, you know, it was about I'm a god, I'm a king.
The fight is
Well, you know,
taken out
brother.
of them now, and they want a
Oh
peaceful
yeah,
death. It's taken
Well,
out of them.
from my perspective, because we're so wired towards religion, at some point in time when the mortality question comes up, you know, the transition. And you know, for those of us who study now and you know are getting more into like esoteric study, things like that, you understand that we've always been here and we're always going to be here. You know, that mortality question, it almost becomes like a non-factor. It for me, it makes you focus on the work that you're supposed to do while you're here so that you can have a quote unquote good transition. But for a lot of that older generation, when that mortality question comes up, is like, oh shit, man, like I do want to go to heaven, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, let me clean up my act now and get all pious and you know, right with these white folks, so you know I can make it into the pearly gates, you know. So that's another thing with that older generation, that you know their minds, like they were being defined as youth, but you know that was defiance that's supposed to go throughout your lifetime, because we are still under the same system. Like it hasn't gone anywhere. So what's the time to be docile now? Like you, like Millie Fuller, like you're supposed to be going until the day you go, or like a you know, Dr. Claude Anderson. Like
yeah.
the message has not changed, the conditions have not changed. So you know that whole fight the power mindset should not change as well. But from my perspective, that when you put the religious talk when you, alongside mortality, it's one of the triggers that you know knocks them onto their knees. Like, man, let me get into heaven, man, the right way. You know, they start talking about Jesus Christ, and you know, it's a total reverse. And it's like it puts like a black eye in the message that you put out there in the first place.
Yeah, it's weird because oftentimes as we get older, we do see our mortality, and don't let a physical illness come upon us. I mean, that is a huge trigger for us to get our lives
Start
right
praying.
with God, and that's why I'm a proponent of just do your research, especially about this heaven and hell thing. Just do your research, like you, brother. When me coming out of religion and understanding, you know, the truth about heaven and hell and all of that, it made me want to live this life more to the fullest. You know,
Yes.
as opposed to, well, I got to get myself right. I'm just going. It's like people I know. It's like they're sitting waiting to die so they can transition to
Oh
get into heaven,
man.
and so you miss a whole life of. I said, even if you believe in this God, don't you think that when you believe this God created all this world for you to enjoy, as opposed to just limiting yourself and saying, I'm just going to be just like this and until I can't wait to die because I can't wait to get on the other side. You know, so what are you gonna do on the other side? You're gonna worship this deity forever, every
Oh
day, 24/7. You know, I don't get it. I don't. But when I was in the church, I didn't question it. It didn't seem crazy to me at all. It was natural. It happened. We heard the sermons every Sunday. We heard the songs. We sung the songs. You know, we're gonna go to heaven and streets paved with gold and milk and honey. I don't even like milk. So I mean, I don't, it's crazy. But now that I'm on the other side, it makes me want to live life to the fullest. It makes me, you know, you get up every day, you got something to live for. I heard a Christian and I had a debate, and they said, well, if you don't believe in God, what do you have to live for? And I thought that was the saddest thing, one of the saddest things I had ever heard. I said, what do you mean? What do you have to live for? I said, I got everything. I have a beautiful wife with a fantastic marriage and a great business. I'm healthy. I want to see the world. I got family and friends. And I want to spend time. I got a ton to live for. And so it was
You
just
know,
crazy.
my
Pascal's
brother,
wager. I see you. Yeah.
you know, my brother, not to cut your wisdom, you know, like because I take care of my parents at this point in time. You know, my dad's illness and my mom's condition. So, you know, I'm pretty much the administrator over all of their affairs at this point in time. And so, you know, I have to basically go and do the back work. You know, everything that my father did or didn't do is now, you know, being uncovered because I have to basically take care of these things. And, you know, one of the major things that I find in this situation is that so much was left amiss. It was almost as if it was like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, or like my brother said, me and my brother, it's going to burn anyway. Like they kind of had this mindset, like, you know, it doesn't really matter because we're working for the hereafter. And, you know, I see the energy that my father put into this thing and the things that he left to the wayside. And it's like, all I could think to myself is just wasted potential. Like I see some of the things that my father used to write. Like he was such an articulate writer. And then, you know, when it came to business, the times that my father did step out of his comfort zone, he flourished. And it was like, you know, if he would have just delved deeper into that, you know, where would his life have been, or where would it be at this point in time? So it, like, what comes to me now so much, and like it actually brings me to a point of sadness, is like wasted potential. You know, like all of this genius that my father diverted towards this religion, and at the end of the journey, at the end of the course, it was all for nothing, because what's left behind now is just tattered writings, you know, old like Sunday school paraphernalia, nothing that's gonna propel his future generations, like his grandchildren, etc. Like all of it is really trash. Like I was clearing out their garage, like, you know, just making room for more things, and I just found all these things that were molded over. Everything went into the dumpster. Like nothing was like worth holding on to because it held no value for real. So it for me it's really like a sadness for me, like coming out of that cult mindset, but then having to take care of my parents who are very much still immersed into it, and you know, just seeing the works that they put out there and put so much energy into that came to nothing, you know.
Yep. And I also write about the wasted resources that the church takes away from us. You know, we talk about the financial resources, but what
Yeah.
about the talents? The talents. I mean, there are people in the church who have beautiful voices and can write and can, you know, can be authors, they can be all that, but they either they believe that they got to give it to the church for free, or they believe that is demonic or not of the church, so they don't pursue it. And like you said, you know, that's wasted energy, that's wasted effort, that's wasted talent that not only they could have used to make their lives better, but make the lives
Monetize.
better for their kids and their grandkids. And so, and that's a stark difference between us and white people. White people, it's all about self-preservation, making things better for me and my kids. Us, it's like, well, the Bible says it's gonna come to an end soon, and we got to be preparing for the hereafter. So
But you
we
know,
waste those resources and that talent.
God gave me this talent. God gave me this gift. So I'm going to use my talents until the Lord. And it's like, okay,
but,
look at.
but what happened to that scripture that's in it that says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children? Like that's in their book as well.
But
But
a
it's
lot of
like it's
times
just glossed over.
they think that inheritance, at least we do, some of us as Black people, we believe that inheritance is the belief in God and Jesus. So we have to indoctrinate our kids and grandkids. Because think about it, that's the most important thing to black people is if like anything you say, if someone passed away, the first thing, oh, he was a believer, or he was a believer.
He was saved.
If
Saved,
this
sanctified,
person
and
goes to
filled with the Holy
jail,
Ghost.
if
I
he or
have
she
so
goes
many
to jail,
obituaries like that.
like, but he believed, he's a man of God. He
Or
believes
the
in
Lord to
God.
the last day.
Yeah. So that's what we think is an inheritance, is that we've exposed our kids and grandkids to the greatness of God and Jesus. And so now we're giving them, as opposed to what we're really supposed to be giving them. You know, every generation should not have to start over again.
Right, from
You know,
scratch.
that's crazy that we have to do that. But some of that is based on what we believe as far as church, and that's what we give as an inheritance. I give, you know, my regardless of the accomplishments that I've been able to do in my life, my mother was extremely, extremely disappointed when I walked away from the church. It's like nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered except, was I a believer? And was I a person of God? And when I walked away from the church, that canceled everything else out. That cancels everything else out. And so
Mhm.
that's how a lot of us are when it comes to this religion, this practice that we do.
I think of it is like when parents don't have anything tangible, they spent their whole entire life BSing and lollygagging, and they wasn't stacking paper, they wasn't ensuring longevity for their generations. That's when they say, well, you know, I believe I brought my children up right or whatever. But then that's when this other scripture comes in, or this saying in the church, you know, well, honor thy mother and father. Okay, my mother and father left me out here to fend for myself. Shout out to Jason Black. Go ahead and check out his channel and check him out, the Black Authority, and also
Black
on
Authority.
Jason
he
Black, okay.
he's been asking questions. He's like, you know, what have the elders been doing for us? And it's like nothing. Like we are facing extinction. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's small pockets of us. We're here, but we're not where we need to be.
We're not where we need to be.
I have a video. It was actually a reel, but you may be able to find it on Twitter as well. I was in Walmart, and this older dude, he comes up, we just strike up a conversation. I'm like, all right, old dude, I'm not really looking for you, but all right. And with his mask on and his Georgia, I voted Georgia sticker, and he's like, did you get out and vote today? I'm like, I'm kind of like, it's business, but you know, I wanted to kind of be cordial and go about my business. And so I'm like, well, it's still early. I think I have time. And he goes on and on. We got to get out here and vote. You got to accept the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, hold on. My mama like that. I was just playing. I'm like, say that one more time. And he actually said on camera, we got to accept the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, well, thank you, sir. And I walk right outside. I'm like, oh my gosh. No way. But in his hand, he had a bottle of wine and some eggs, and he's wearing a face mask. His all the way up there. I'm like, this dude crazy. I'm like, okay, unless someone asks me to vote, or you know, there's something in it for me, then I'm not gonna do it. But that's them. You got to get out and vote because you got to do it. It's just civil duty. I'm like, all right.
That's that helpless and hopeless mentality that we have.
Yep.
That's that helpless and hopeless mentality we have. If you notice, Asian community, they don't make a bunch of noise about voting because they know that if they handle their business economically, they don't need the politicians. They don't need that. If they
They're
handle
power
their
based
business
by themselves.
Exactly. They are power based by themselves. We need something external to us. And it starts with us teaching our kids that you need Jesus in order to be whole, that you need God. And so that outstretches to now you need the government to support you. Now you need white people and all of this. All of it's connected. We don't see it, but all of this stuff is connected. And it keeps us where we are collectively. It keeps us exactly where we are. And we just don't see it.
But you know, brother, they don't even look at the church as being connected to the government. They don't see it in that light. You know, when I talk to my parents, you know, because now I attempt to have objective conversations with them. And you know, at one point in time, to be honest with you, I was sold out for this religion. You know, like when that mortality question came up for me at one point in time, I did, you know, take the blue pill, and I'm like, you know what, I got to live my life right, etc. But through my lens, like I could not discount the financial aspect of life like they did. So I made an attempt to educate the younger generation that was in my church about financial things, you know, credit, etc., etc. And I went through the pastor, you know, to basically get permission to put on like a little financial, let me not say little, but you know, it was a startup financial literacy group that one of my partners and we put together. So in the conversation of wanting to educate the youth about things that I wasn't given when I left my house at 18, it came right back around to the conversation of Christianity. Like, well, you know, you have to start and stop with prayer. You got to include scripture, all this other stuff that had nothing to do with finances. But then when it came down to it, he said, well, you know, what it really is that, you know, we can't have secular intersecting with the church. He was like, it's a conflict, and if it was to get out to the main branch in Portland, it's not going to look good. And I'm like, but all we're doing is educating our youth so that they don't make the same mistakes that we did. So that thing of the 5013C and not empowering the people in the community. That was when that thing came and slapped me right in the face. And that was actually the point where I started to actually turn around, because I'm like, so this really has nothing to do with the betterment of the people. Like, this soul conversation, it is at the detriment of you physically, financially, all of that. It is a byproduct when we're talking about this soul conversation. So, that thing where the government has this kind of switch, where the moment that you start to throw logic into the equation, where you attempt to empower those that are around you, because that's, from my perspective, thinking for yourself is basically empowering yourself. When you start to put those facets in there, there's like this trigger. It's like, no, we can't do that right there. You got to keep that secular away from the spiritual. Like, oh no, we can't talk about balancing checkbooks. We got to get your soul right. So, that was one of the things that I constantly bring up to my parents. Like, do you know that there's a clause? Like, if you have a church that is a 5013C, you cannot make these steps to empowerment, because it goes against what you have to be for the community, which is this feel good station. So, that conversation comes up a lot now.
The church has to keep people in need. If you're not struggling, and you're not miserable, or you're not unhappy, or you're not sick, or you're not broke,
You ain't doing it right.
You ain't going to church. And the church understands that. The church understands that. My mother, we talked about the whole insurance thing. She sold insurance for 30, I'm probably close to 40 years. The ironic thing about it is that she let the policy lapse because she didn't have money, instead of telling us. But every time, whenever she got her hands on some money, she always paid tithes. She always took that money to the church, and that money could have been going toward an insurance policy. But understand what the church job is, to provide us hope, right? That's it. They don't give us anything else. They tell us that they're going to do other stuff, but at the end of the day, it's to provide us hope. So they want you to come in a bad condition. The better you off collectively, generally speaking, the less you go to church. Now, there's some people who are better off. They go to church, but it becomes more of a social deal. Their kids got friends in churches. You're part of a different organization. But as far as that needing to be there, the better off you are socially, economically, the less you tend to go to church. And there are studies out there that talk about that. That's why we're the most churched people in the world, because we're the most downtrodden people in the world, because that church gives us the only hope. Yeah, that's it. So absolutely, I love the comments and that we've been getting. Absolutely fantastic.
This has been great, and Brother Andrew, I really thank you so much. Like this just so.
Thank you, brother.
This was like, I will say this goes in my list of favorite videos, because I was looking forward to tonight. I'm looking for. I'm like, yes. It's Wednesday. I was like Norbit, how he was like Tuesday. I was like Wednesday. I was so excited.
Yeah, this has been awesome, man. It's so much stuff, and so to Tieesha and I, we're gonna keep doing this.
Yes.
Well, the biggest part of this to me, for me, and probably for Tieesha as well, is that we create this space for us to come together. So for anybody that's out there that's making comments or viewing this, please come in, give us your comments, give us your questions. Let's create this space, because it's growing. We are becoming wiser. We're asking more questions, and we're leaving the church. We're leaving religion, and we need to have this space so that we can come together and find each other, so that we don't feel like that we're the only ones out there. Because any of you guys know, when you started on this journey, especially if you live down south, it's hard to find other Black people that's on this journey that you're on. They don't like someone like the other lady said earlier. They ask you what church you go to. That's how we greet each other down here. How you doing? What church you go to? They don't ask you if you go to church. So this community that we're trying to grow here is important. It's big as a way to share information. I learned, Tieesha learned, we all learn from each other. And hopefully we can continue to grow it.
And disclaimer, I'm not looking for any tithes or offerings or wanting you to do anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not looking for anything either.
No, none of that. So it's just, this space here is Brother Willie's channel. So make sure hold on, there we go. So
guys, I'm gonna go ahead and click off. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Brother, yeah. I'm definitely gonna check out your book. Thank you. I
appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So yes, this here is your channel. So make sure you head over and check out the videos, the book. Oh my gosh, your book is just amazing because it just confirms a lot of things. It's like you feel like you're on this planet or this lonely island by yourself that you have like two heads. I think people would treat you better if you had two heads, but
they would.
And denounce religion and you just like, look, I'm a good person because I choose to be. Okay. But people just cannot accept that. This past weekend, I went to Midtown Atlanta. And that's the thing. This is funny. Sidebar. So people pick on me and tell me I have an accent. And I actually picked up a book. I signed up for Toastmasters to try to, lose my Midwest accent, but it's kind of influenced by all the places I've lived.
You don't really have an accent to me. I've been at Toastmasters for 16 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've been in the same club for 16 years. So it's a great thing. But you don't really have I don't know what a Midwest accent is.
We say pop instead of the S word, a cold Pepsi. Then from living in Virginia, I worked with someone who said, I'm fixing to do this. And I thought it sounded so cool. But in Cincinnati, we say I'm finna go. But I like fixing better. So I kind of just adopted.
It's very Southern.
Some people up in the Northeast, they used to call trash rubbish. And I thought it was so funny. And I just pick up different things from different places I go. When I say it or use it, it just brings back a memory like, hey, I remember this person. They were really kind to me. But I thought about, living here in Georgia, Atlanta, as it's written, you got to pronounce it Atlanta. So forget when I say Atlanta.
Yeah,
like, hey, the show Atlanta's coming on. Like, it's Atlanta. It's not. What did it say? Albany, Georgia? No, it's Albany. I'm like, okay.
Albany. Have you been to? Is it South Georgia? It's spelled like Cairo, Georgia, like Cairo, Egypt.
It's Cairo,
but it's Cairo. Right?
Yes.
I went down there. I was working corporate, and I had to go down there to do a retirement plan for the school system down there. And I walk in and I said, okay, I'm here. I'm in Cairo. And they looked at me like I had two heads, like they wanted to kill me. They said, it's not Cairo, it is Cairo. I said,
yes.
And then I just stopped. I said, whatever. Yeah, so they pronounce it Cairo.
But yeah, I went to Midtown Atlanta. We went to Big Dave's cheesesteak first. Oh my gosh, best cheesesteaks. Oh my gosh, I haven't been to Philly yet, but I thought Cincinnati at Penn Station we had some good subs. Now you got to go to Big Dave's cheesesteak in Midtown Atlanta, and all around there's just homeless people all over. Just down and out. Afterwards, we decided to right up the street to Reverend King's birth home. And so we drove up there and it was just like a hop, skip, and a jump away. And I'm like, oh wow. And we went past the Ebenezer Baptist Church and things like that. And it's like, wow, okay. You have this church here and this is a place of, American history, but you have like homeless people. And it's like, wow, it was just something that just kind of, I don't know, it just did something to my soul to see that. It's like, how people are being, priced out of Atlanta, priced out of everywhere. But like the church, you go and it's like, okay, we have hope. We're pushing hope. And they distract you. They'll say something. I know you got a bill to pay. We all got bills to pay, okay? But it's no solution. It's just, okay, we're going to coddle you. And it's like, no, we need action. So the uprisings and things like that, it's there because there's a problem and the elders did not provide us a solution for that. They put the Bible and hope and in its place, and this is the aftermath. This is what you get. And so for those of us who friends and family left us alone after we left religion, good, because guess what? It didn't break us. We see you still on doing the same stuff over and over and over again, and you just comfortable in that. You don't, like, some people I know, they're comfortable living on less than $1,000 a month. But it's like, how can you do that? Well, all I know is that I get my little SSI and this, and my rent $18. But as soon as they tell them they got to move, somebody else bought the building they live in where they get $18 rent. Then all of a sudden it's a problem. It's like, no, you wasted all this time, sitting on your hands. You'll go to City Trends and put religious pictures and scriptures all over the house. But now you asked out, so.
While you getting the $18, paying the $18, you could be going to trade school or learning a skill or something.
And that's what Brother Andrew was talking about. He wanted to bring some kind of literacy course into the church. The church has classrooms. They'll sell tickets for concerts. You can come there to eat and do this. They want to give away that and have a Christmas tree drive. But okay, how about we use one of these trailers that's empty and have a class on drywall, on flooring, on plumbing, on electrical work. Those of us who come back from the military, we picked up some kind of, skill or trade that was beneficial. Some of us, like me, I don't want to do it because I don't want to deal with fuels. But I saw something with like the highest paid trades or careers, and it was like some kind of engineer. And I'm like, okay, how come we can't use this area to do that? So it's like, wow, we have to be our own saviors, save ourselves, and get as far away from the church as possible. And that, like you said, they want you to do stuff for free. Like, no, you're going to compensate me. If I come here and I play the bass, you're going to pay me.
Yep. So I think a subject that we can do even next week or whatever is what should we expect a return on investment from the church, or what should that return on investment be? Investment being our money, our time, our effort. I had a gentleman that was debating with me on TikTok, and he was like, "See, you don't understand the church because there's no such thing. It should be a return on investment. But you can't have a church in a community where we give our time and all our money, and the church is sitting there just collecting money and resources and not doing anything for the community."
The church receives grants too.
Yep.
It received grants because right now I'm sure churches are filing for all types of stuff, and I haven't seen too many programs happening in the church. They're like, we can't sit this close together, can't have this many people in here. So this money is going somewhere.
So we should have maybe we'll do a show on that. Should we expect a return on investment from the church, or what should it be? How can we fix that problem? Because I can't, my mom was where she lived. She told me one day, she said, "Willie, there's about, I don't know, some ungodly number, 15, 20 churches in like a very small 5-mile circle of each other, like a 5-mile radius." That's what I'm looking for. Within a 5-mile radius of each other. And I asked her, I said, well, why don't, her church was right next to the projects, the church she went to. And there was very few people from the project that went to that church. And I said, well, why don't a lot of these churches just combine and come together to be able to provide better services for the community? You got 15 to 20 churches in this little small area. She said they'll never do it because the egos of the pastors, who would be in charge, who would be the boss. And I just thought that was sad, with all these people contributing all these resources to the church. They're not paying any taxes on it, but the community still look like crap. I mean, like you said, homeless people that you saw in Midtown near all those churches and everything. And that's in every city, every major city that there is. Bunch of churches, and the community looks like crap. We gave to the building fund. My whole 20 years growing up, and I never saw a church build anything onto the church. It was just a building fund that we gave. That was an additional offer that we gave on top of the offering, on top of the tithes.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something that we can discuss, have a discussion on. You know, what's our return on investment from the church?
Absolutely. I have a video I uploaded like last year called Useless Memberships. And
Oh, that's good.
yeah, I believe I talked about that because I'm like, you know, just some useless memberships, like you pay your dues and you know I'm like, I was just frustrated at that point. I'm like, I'm tired of getting up on Saturdays and picking up garbage on the damn adopted street. I'm sick of doing this. You know, it's like, okay, what is going on? And people like, well, you join this organization and to help you do this and help you get a job. I'm like, well, each time I went for a job, nobody was there in this organization. So I was just really, really frustrated. So I'm going to revisit that video and see if there's anything I missed. But yes, this will be a great one. And everyone who joined us tonight, let us know if you have a topic idea or if you want us to, you know, open up the discussion about something, because this is a place where we can talk like this and no one's here besides the trolls we have the block, you know, to come here and mess with us. And
are there trolls? Are you getting trolls?
It was just some bots posting stupid links. That's all it was. But
Okay.
yeah, that's all it was.
I like
but
trolls.
no, the conversation, the engagement has been wonderful. So yeah, that can definitely be something. I'm thinking one as well is we have the best, or we'll have like a monthly wrap up of the craziest, you know, social media posts and comments of memes and, you know, stuff like that. Because last night I posted something. This lady, she was out having dinner or going out to lunch, and somebody paid the lunch for her, and then she turned around and give God the thanks. I'm like, God didn't do what that person did, you know. So I
yeah, I'm with you on that.
I don't mean to be Scrooge or anything like that, but I'm like, hold on. If I'm going to do something from the goodness of my heart for you and my hard work and labor, and you give all thanks to God, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right.
When I see the signs of folks, you know, can you help me out? Anything helps. God bless. I'm like, that's right. God will bless you. And I keep on driving through the traffic light or off the exit ramp. God will bless you. And I keep it pushing.
There you go. Well, this has been great. This has been fantastic. We will next week.
Next week I'll be here. Do you have anything you want to say to everybody watching where they can find you?
First of all, thank you for everyone who chimed in, who gave us comments, who wrote comments, who had information, all of that, the comments, the contributions. We really appreciate that. Let's keep this going. You can pick up the book at Amazon, Willie O. Cartwright, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity is Detrimental to the African American Community. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on TikTok. Facebook, I'm WC O'Neal, Oneal. TikTok, I think it's just Willie Cartwright. Instagram is, I think it's Willie Cartwright 1906. I think that's pretty much it. So just glad to have you guys. Oh yeah, my Save the Sane, my YouTube page, the most important. Save the Sane is the YouTube page. You can follow me, Willie Cartwright, but it's YouTube, Save to Sane. It's Tieesha has it up right now, so you can take a look at that. You can subscribe. We're going to start doing more and more videos on that. These videos that we've done the last couple of weeks, they will be downloaded on there as well in the next few days. As soon as my wife can do it for me. She does all the stuff for me behind the scenes. She's fantastic. She's great. So glad for that. But that's it. But thank you guys so much.
This is great because, like I said, when you're doing something constructive, like outside of the church, you know, the platforms want to suppress it. So I'm honored to have you over here on my channel. And I'm grateful that, you know, my subscribers, my friends, my family have connected with you as well. So I really appreciate that. So we couldn't do this without y'all. I really thank you for this. And to find me, you can hit me up on all my social media platforms. Links are in the description, I believe, or on my About page. And yeah, make sure you head over to Tieemonics.com for all of your self-defense gear and needs and all that good stuff. And I will see y'all on the next video. Tomorrow, I will be live tomorrow. Yes, your girl over here working hard for the money. I will be live tomorrow because I found a couple. We were actually friends on Facebook for years, but come to find out they actually have developed an alternative to this day that's coming up on Monday. Because I am not Roman and I don't partake in all that. Dr. Barashango, go check out his work, said, it's mental genocide to not only have your oppressors savior, but also celebrate their holidays. So I will be back tomorrow with Mancho and Nawasha Edu, creators of A Coma Day. Here is a quick tidbit. So the heart emoji, or when you think about your heart, you take your hands like this and make it. The heart is that symbol is actually an Akan symbol from Ghana. And make sure you check out the thumbnail and the link that I post for that video tomorrow, because they are gonna go all the way in. It is crazy for you to look like me, but you're celebrating this Roman holiday with this naked baby shooting hearts through the Akan. That's not normal, okay? It's cultural genocide, all right? So I'll be here tomorrow for that. And then I'm taking a break Friday and Saturday, but Sunday I'll be back with Sister Eve. If you remember her, our B1 sister from last year, we did a review on A Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson. She's going to be with me here Sunday, and we're going to discuss the importance of developing a homeschool curriculum, even if your children are, in public school or traditional school, but the importance of developing a homeschool curriculum and teaching your children their culture at home. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. And then next week, I have some surprises for you, but we will be back next Wednesday with Brother Willie Cartwright. So thank you so much for watching.
Support your sister, support Tieesha. Please support her. She's a jewel. We have to keep her. Thank you, Black Voltron Reloaded, for continuing to post where people can get the book. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. See you guys next week.
Willie Cash Girl, Christine Williams, thank you so much. And everybody who joined us tonight, Brother Andrew, Will, I know that you have some problems. Sharon, and also Maya. Thank you so much. I will talk to y'all in the next video. So y'all have a great one. I love y'all so much. See you tomorrow.